Can I tell you something that is going to completely change the way you think about Chinese? Because I have had this conversation so many times, and someone looks at Chinese characters and immediately their brain goes, nope, too much, too foreign, too complicated. I could never. And I get it. I genuinely get it. Because on the surface, it looks like you have to learn an entirely different visual system before you can even say your first word. But here's what nobody ever told you. Speaking Chinese and reading Chinese are two completely separate skills. You can become genuinely conversational, like actually having real conversations without learning a single character. Not one. This is not a life hack. This is not me trying to sell you something easy. This is literally how the language works. And once you understand this, everything changes. Stay with me. I'm going to prove it. Okay, let's go back in time for a second because history actually explains everything here. For thousands of years in China, the written language was for the elite, scholars, officials, the educated class. And the written language, classical Chinese, was so different from how ordinary people actually spoke that it was basically a completely separate language. Normal people spoke, they communicate, they traded, they negotiated, fell in love, raised children, built entire lives through spoken language. The writing was a different world entirely. And even today, that gap exists. Written Chinese is more formal, more compressed. Spoken Chinese is faster, looser, full of little particles and expressions that never appear in textbooks. But here's the part that changes everything for you. Chinese has a romanization system called Pinyin. It was created to represent the sound of Mandarin using the Latin alphabet. Letters you already know, A, B, C, D, exactly the same ones. Every sound in Mandarin has a Pinyin spelling, and every word, every conversation, and Chinese children learn Pinyin before they learn characters. It is the official phonetic foundation taught in every school in China, which means you can learn to speak Mandarin correctly, naturally, fluently, using only Pinyin. You're not bypassing the language. You're using the exact same starting point that native speakers use. Let that land for a second. I want to ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it. What does fluency actually mean to you? Because most people have this picture, reading a newspaper, writing formally, understanding literature. But that is literacy, and literacy and fluency are not the same thing. Fluency means you can communicate. You can say what you think, understand what comes back, hold a real conversation in real time. You can navigate a relationship, a negotiation, a meal, a meeting in the language. Think about how many people in the world are completely fluent in a spoken language they cannot read or write. Hundreds of millions of people speak their dialect perfectly every single day without being able to write a formal sentence in the standardized version. Are they not fluent? Of course they are. The same is true for Mandarin. Speaking and listening, that is the language of relationships, of trust, of real human connections. Characters are beautiful and worth learning, but they're not the door. They never had to be. And here's the number that matters. Most common 1,000 words in spoken Mandarin cover around 90% of everyday conversation. 1,000 words in Pinyin through listening and speaking, months, not years. Compare that to 2,000 to 5,000 characters you need to read comfortably. Years of dedicated study. That is the gap nobody talks about. That is the honest truth about how the language actually works. And now I want to show you Pinyin right now so you can see with your own eyes how straightforward this is. Every syllable in Mandarin has two parts. An initial, the consonant at the beginning, a final, the vowel that follows, and a tone mark above the vowel that tells you the shape that your voice makes. So 你好, which means hello in Pinyin is 你好. 你 with a falling rising tone. 好 with a falling rising tone. 你好. Yeah, you just said hello in Chinese. 谢谢, thank you. 谢 falling tone and 谢 neutral tone. 谢谢. 朋友 is friend. 朋 rising tone. 友 falling and rising. 朋友. Those are real words. There aren't characters, letters that you already know. Now the tones. I know there is where people get nervous. So let me take that away right now. Mandarin has 4 tones. First tone, flat and high, like holding a musical note. Ma. Second tone, rise like saying what? Going up. ma. Third tone dips and then rises like a little valley and your voice travels through, ma. And fourth tone falls sharply like a firm no, ma. They're all same letters, but 4 different tones, and they're all different words. Ma, it means mother. Ma, it means numb. Ma, it means a horse. Ma is to scold. You see, they're all completely different meanings. Yes, tones matter, but here is what your brain needs to hear. In real conversation, context does almost all the work. Nobody thinks you're talking about a horse when you meant to say mother. The sentence around the word, the situation, the relationship, all of that carries the meaning before the tone even has to do the heavy lifting. Tones become natural, and natural comes from listening and speaking, the exact skills you're already building. Let me show you what spoken Mandarin gives you without a single character. You can walk into any restaurant in China and navigate the entire experience. Order food, ask about ingredients, pay the bill, thank them as you leave. The menu has characters. You point, you ask, and they answer, you respond, all spoken. You can take a taxi anywhere and tell the driver where to go, understand their questions, respond, all spoken. And you can introduce yourself and begin building a relationship. You name where you're from, what you do, why you're here, what you think of the food, and you can understand what comes back. That exchange, that moment of human connection, is the entire foundation of Chinese culture. It has nothing to do with characters. And this one is for anyone doing business with China. For example, when an Arab professional sits across from a Chinese supplier and says even 5 sentences in Mandarin, the entire energy of the meeting shifts. The supplier sits up, something changes, trust begins, not because of perfect grammar, because of the effort, because that effort signals, I respect you enough to learn your language. That signal is worth more than a Chinese business relationship, than any contract. And you can also understand Chinese media, podcasts, videos, conversations around you. Your listening comprehension develops through your ears, the exact same way you absorb your first language as a child, long before you could read a single word. And all of this is just spoken Mandarin alone. So what does the actual path look like? Step 1, learn Pinyin first. 1 week, learn the initials, the finals, the 4 tones, practice using reading Pinyin feels automatic. This is your phonetic foundation, and it takes days, not months. Step 2, start listening immediately, not to understand everything, just to let your ear get used to the rhythm and the sounds. Your brain is a pattern finding machine. Give it patterns and it will do the work. Step 3, learn the most common spoken vocabulary. Not formal vocabulary, not textbook vocabulary. The words people actually say every day, like 你好,谢谢,多少钱,我要,没关系,好的. These are your building blocks, and they're not complicated at all. Step 4, speak from day 1. Not when you feel ready, from day 1. Your mouth needs practice the same way your ear does. The discomfort of getting it wrong is not failure. It is literally how language learning works. Every conversation is data your brain is collecting and filling. Step 5, add characters later. When you're already conversational, when you have a real relationship with the spoken language, characters will feel like the next interesting layer. It's not the terrifying first barrier, and they will come faster because you will already know the words. You will just be adding the visual form of sounds that you already own. It is the sequence that works, and the reason most people fail at Chinese is that they start at step 5. They see the characters, they panic, and they never make it to step 1. At the end, I want to leave you with this. Chinese is not one mountain, it is 2. Speaking and listening is one, and reading and writing is the other. Most people look at both mountains at once and stop before they even take a single step, but you only have to climb one mountain at a time. And the first one, the spoken language, is so much more climbable than anyone ever told you. You do not need to memorize thousands of characters before you can say a word. You just need a starting point that actually makes sense. And that is is why I built my 7-day challenge. Around 7 days, one lesson a day designed around spoken Mandarin, Pinyin, real vocabulary, and the cultural context that makes it all click. No characters, no overwhelm, just the language, the living, spoken, real version of it. If you want to try it, the link is in the description. And if the video changed something for you, share it for someone who has been telling themselves that Chinese is too hard, because it is not. They just needed to hear this.